She maltreated her old crippled mother-in-law when no one was looking, and always denies it until the husband saw her doing something devastating to his crippled mother. Like and subscribe as we dive into this exciting tale. To the outside world, Emily was the perfect wife and daughter-in-law. Her neighbors would often say, "Daniel is lucky to have such a caring woman." And why wouldn't they? Emily always smiled sweetly, greeted everyone with warmth, and was often seen pushing her crippled mother-in-law, Grace, around the garden as if she adored her. But behind the walls of their home, Emily's smile vanished. Grace, once a proud and strong woman, was now confined to a wheelchair after a tragic accident. She depended on her son and daughter-in-law for help. But Daniel worked long hours as a regional manager, often away on trips. In his absence, Grace was left at the mercy of Emily. And Emily's mercy was cruel. "You think just because you're Daniel's mother, you can order me around?" Emily sneered one morning, slamming a cup of cold tea on the table in front of Grace. "Be grateful I even give you this. If it were up to me, you'd be rotting in a care home." Grace's hands trembled, but she said nothing. Experience had taught her that speaking up only made Emily's mood worse. But the cruel treatment didn't stop at words. Emily would forget to bring Grace her medications. She would accidentally park her wheelchair in direct sunlight for hours. Some days, she'd lock Grace's bedroom door from the outside and leave for hours, pretending it was an oversight. But every evening, when Daniel's car pulled into the driveway, Emily transformed. She would rush to Grace with a smile, fixing her hair, adjusting her blanket. "Oh, Mother, did you take your meds today? Let me make you some fresh soup." Daniel would smile, feeling proud of his wife's kindness. Grace tried, multiple times, to tell her son the truth. But every time she started, Emily's eyes would fill with fake tears. "She's just stressed, Daniel," Emily would say, her voice trembling. "I'm trying my best, but maybe I'm not enough." And Daniel, he believed her. Why wouldn't he? To him, Emily was a saint. But Grace knew the truth. And she knew that no one would believe her unless they saw it with their own eyes. What she didn't know was, that moment was coming. The days passed, and Emily's cruelty worsened. The more Grace stayed silent, the bolder Emily became. She found new ways to humiliate the old woman, always ensuring Daniel was nowhere near to witness it. One afternoon, while Daniel was away on a business trip, Emily invited a few of her friends over. She made a show of being the dutiful daughter-in-law, pushing Grace's wheelchair into the living room where the women were gathered. "Oh, how I wish I had a normal mother-in-law," Emily sighed dramatically as her friends giggled. "But you know, some people just live too long." Grace's face burned with humiliation, but she kept her head down, hands clenched tightly in her lap. Once the guests had left, Emily's mask slipped completely. She stormed into the kitchen and returned with a kettle of freshly boiled water. "You want to sit there and act like a queen, don't you?" Emily hissed. "Let's see how you feel after this." She raised the kettle menacingly, tilting it just enough for a drop of hot water to splash onto Grace's arm. Grace let out a sharp cry of pain, but Emily wasn't done. "Oh? Did that hurt?" "Poor thing," Emily mocked, bringing the kettle closer. But unknown to Emily, Daniel had returned home early. His meeting had been cancelled, and he had decided to surprise his wife and mother. As he entered through the back door, he paused at the sight before him. Through the slightly ajar living room door, he saw his beloved wife towering over his frail, crippled mother, kettle in hand, wearing an expression he had never seen before, pure malice. For a moment, Daniel was frozen in disbelief. His mind struggled to reconcile the loving Emily he knew with the monster in front of him. But as another drop of scalding water fell on Grace's arm and she whimpered in pain, something inside Daniel snapped. "Emily," his voice thundered across the room. Emily froze, the kettle slipping from her grasp and crashing onto the floor. She spun around, her face draining of color when she saw Daniel standing at the doorway, his eyes wide with shock and fury. Daniel, this isn't what it looks like," Emily stammered, suddenly grasping for excuses. "I was just just trying to help her clean up. She. Enough. Daniel's voice cut through her lies like a blade. His fists were clenched, his entire body shaking, not just with rage, but with guilt. Guilt that he hadn't believed his mother's cries for help. That he had trusted Emily's sweet facade over the woman who had raised him. He rushed to Grace's side, gently kneeling before her. Her arm was red and blistered from the hot water. "I'm so sorry, Mom," he whispered, his voice breaking. Grace didn't speak. She simply placed a trembling hand on his shoulder, a quiet acknowledgement that no words could express. But Daniel wasn't done. Slowly, he stood up, turning to Emily, who was now backing away, realizing the web of lies she had so carefully spun was unraveling before her eyes. The silence that followed was suffocating. Emily stood frozen, her back pressed against the wall, as Daniel's furious gaze bore into her. For a brief moment, she considered trying to weep, to beg, to twist the truth yet again. But something in Daniel's eyes told her the game was over. He had seen everything. "Daniel, please," Emily's voice wavered, her usual charm now reduced to desperation. "I was under so much stress. Your mother, she's been difficult. You know how she is." "Stop," Daniel said, his voice dangerously calm. "I've heard enough lies from you." He turned back to Grace, who sat quietly, her fragile hands resting in her lap. The redness on her arm was glaring, an undeniable mark of Emily's cruelty. Daniel's heart ached with guilt, the weight of his ignorance crushing him. He had been blind for far too long. "Pack your things, Emily," Daniel said, turning to his wife. His tone was cold, final. "You're leaving this house today." Emily's mouth fell open. "What? You're kicking me out because of her?" "Daniel, you can't do this. We're married. You stopped being my wife the moment you raised your hand against my mother." Daniel's voice was like steel. "I stood by you, trusted you, even when she tried to tell me the truth. But you made me a fool." Emily's face twisted into anger. "You think you can just throw me away? After everything I've done for you? I sacrificed for this marriage." Daniel let out a bitter laugh. "Sacrifice? You mean tormenting my mother behind my back? Using my absence as a shield to abuse her? No, Emily. You've only ever served yourself." Realizing her pleas were futile, Emily's mask cracked. "You'll regret this, Daniel," she spat, grabbing her purse. "Don't come crawling back when you realize what you've lost." "I've already lost enough," Daniel replied sharply. "Now get out." Emily stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind her. The echoes of her departure filled the house, but the moment she was gone, the air seemed to clear. Daniel sat beside Grace, his head in his hands. "Mom, I don't even know where to begin asking for your forgiveness." Grace, ever gentle, patted his shoulder softly. "You've seen the truth, my son. That's enough for me." Tears welled up in Daniel's eyes. "You shouldn't have had to endure this. I should have believed you." Grace smiled faintly. "A mother's heart forgives easily, Daniel. But promise me one thing, never let kindness blind you to someone's true nature." Daniel nodded solemnly. The following day, Daniel made a public announcement. He donated generously to a foundation supporting elderly care and domestic abuse victims, in honor of his mother. He wanted the world to know the importance of standing up for the vulnerable, even within one's own home. As for Emily, her mask had shattered. Word of her actions spread, and the respect she once commanded in social circles vanished. She had lost everything, not because of Grace's words, but because of her own wickedness. But Grace, in her quiet dignity, had won, not through revenge or hatred, but through patience and unwavering strength. And Daniel? He had learned the most valuable lesson of his life. Evil often hides behind a smile, but truth always finds its way to the light. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like and subscribe, as it will help grow this channel.